episode 2 of NFL and Cumpets pre-season predictions. I'm here with my friend Charles.
Right, Phillip.
And this is Phillip. And we are going to dissect every single team in the NFL and what they are going to do in the 12-13 season. Today we're talking about the St. Louis Rams, who are the second worst team in the 11-12 season with an abysmal record of 2 wins and 14 losses after their quarterback Sam Bradford was plagued with injury. They made an interesting move to swap with the Washington Redskins from their second draft pick to move down to 6th, but they did gain a pretty penny from it. They then again swapped with the Cowboys, and they ended up 14th in their first round pick. What do you think about this decision, Charles?
Well, I think, everyone in St. Louis, you speak to anyone, I think they're pretty happy with this. Obviously you say they made a pretty penny out of that move, and, their draft choices weren't half bad anyway as a result of this move. Obviously they didn't need RG3, who was the obvious second choice first round pick. Obviously they've got a good franchise quarterback in Sam Bradford, and they would have had to splash out big for RG3, and it's not really anything that anyone thought in St. Louis they needed or wanted. Sam Bradford, he's on a big book contract, and they didn't have room for Sam Bradford and RG3. Obviously Sam Bradford already being at the organisation, even though RG3 does look a very exciting player, they made the decision to stick with Sam Bradford, and I think that's a good choice. Obviously he's used to the Rams' way of playing, obviously played with injury last season, we didn't get to see him much, but I think this guy's going to be really good at the Rams, and I look forward to seeing him in the NFL International Series here in London.
Yep, and we are going to that actually, aren't we?
Yeah, I know, I'm looking forward to it.
And also, so what did you think was their best draft pick? Because Michael Brockers was pick 1, Brian Quick pick 2, and Janoris Jenkins pick 3. And on the Rams website, in a poll, 56% of fans thought their first round pick should have been a wide receiver. Obviously it wasn't, it was Brockers at defensive tackle. Their second pick, Brian Quick, is a wide receiver. Who do you think out of those two was the better pick?
I'm going to go with Brian Quick. I think many people were quite surprised at the Michael Brookers choice. I spoke to a few people in St. Louis, and they're not too sure about him. But I think you don't often see teams in the first round pick going for a defensive tackle. But it's a move it could pay off if it bolsters their defensive line. Then well done the Rams. But I'm going to talk about Brian Quick now. He might not be blazing down the sidelines, but at 6'4" and 220 pounds, he definitely has the size and strength to dominate the smaller defensive backs, which obviously we've seen quite a few thrive throughout the NFL in the most recent years. They seem to be getting smaller and smaller, a lot of the cornerbacks, and so I think he could be a real success in the NFL. I think maybe I've heard comparisons to him with Vincent Jackson, although minus the diva attitude. And Sam Bradford, we've seen him when he has played. And obviously he's been plagued with injury, but when he has made his few appearances for the Rams, often he hasn't really had a go-to guy. You look at the Patriots, they have Wes Welker. You look at the Steelers, they have Mike Wallace. You go to Green Bay and they have Greg Jennings, and all these real successful franchises. They all have at least one wide receiver who the quarterback doesn't even have to look up. He knows exactly where he is, and he'll make that pass every time. They have great chemistry, and I think Brian Quick and Sam Bradford could develop this relationship, and I think this could be a real interesting one to watch. So I'm looking forward to seeing these guys develop in the 2012-2013 season.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And as you were talking about quarterbacks, they seem to have been quite interested in these cornerbacks. I mean, their third pick and their fifth pick were both cornerbacks in Janoris Jenkins and Trumaine Johnson. And those were interesting picks as well, and they could be really helpful if they come in as starters. They might end up in the second string, but we'll have to see what goes off at the start of the season.
Well, this is what I've been talking to a few Rams fans, and they've been telling me great things come in pairs, and that's the mantra for these Ram fans when it comes to latest dynamic duo in the defensive backfield. These guys, they're exciting. Obviously, I think they will need to develop some sort of chemistry and understanding of one another. But the Rams secondary, it's not been great over the past few years, and I think these two guys will really come in and shore up that secondary. And we've seen the Rams get passed on quite a few times in the last few years, but obviously these guys are going to try and change that. And obviously we see the St. Louis Rams coming to Wembley in London for the NFL International Series. Obviously, they're here for 3 years, and so they're going to want to put a good performance and try and get a good fan base for the next 2 years and build a solid base on which they can use as a springboard for success here in England. And, I think, obviously, they're playing the New England Patriots this year, one of the great passing franchises of, this era, Tom Brady, we've seen players like Randy Moss, obviously still Wells Welk, who's there, we've seen Grunt come in last few years. They are probably, arguably, the best ever passing offense, and so obviously the Rams maybe think with Wembley in mind, the international series in mind, have signed these two guys, and I think Janice Jenkins and Tremaine Johnson, they're going to be exciting players, and they're physical as well. They're not going to get pushed off by the wide receivers off the ball. So I think this is good. With any, with draft picks, you never know what you're going to get. You even look at Andrew Luck, RG3, even Cam Newton, not everyone was sure of his success, but, the draft's a lottery, and I think the Rams have taken a good ticket here.
Yeah, I reckon they are as well. Looking at their picks, it almost looks like they're going to try and represent the greatest show on turf offense they had back in '99 when they won that Super Bowl with Kurt Warner at quarterback, and they were known as the greatest show on turf because they had such a powerful and attacking offense. They played Isaac Bruce and Holt at the wide receivers. They also had Kurt Warner as the quarterback, as I'd mentioned, and Marshall Faulk at running back, and they just battered through. They slaughtered, and they won that Super Bowl back in '99. And on this list, as you see, two wide receivers, Chris Givens, as well as Brian Quickly, who we've mentioned, as well at running back, Isaiah Peed, who was their fourth pick, as well as Darrell Richardson, who was their compensatory selection, as their last pick. And, that's quite interesting. Do you think they may end up trying to represent the greatest show on turf again?
Obviously, if they could replicate that, I think that's something all Rams fans, all NFL fans would like to see. But, I think it's important for them to look to the future and not look back, because you see many franchises looking back, trying to sort out past errors, and it's just not really working for them. I think the Rams organisation, with the owner Stan Kroenke, he's quite forward thinking. Obviously, the move to 3 years, 3 games at Wembley, I think that shows that they are thinking towards the future, and I think the future is where they want to go. Obviously, Sam Bradford, he's going to be the face of the Rams for a while now. He's a young, exciting quarterback, and I think he's going to take them through to the future. And I think the Rams are definitely looking towards the future, not to the past. But obviously, that's something that all Rams fans would like to remember. And in talking of, seeing as we're on the subject of the draft, another player I'd like to talk about is the kicker they signed, Greg Zuerlein. How do you say it? Zuerlein. Well, I'll learn how to pronounce that. But in the meantime, let's talk about his football. And I think this guy's going to be, this is an interesting signing, because I think he was brought in fiddle to Josh Brown, who of course got cut after the draft. So now the position of the Rams kicker is all his, and it's gonna be, when you look to the draft, you don't think that the kickers are not normally making the headlines. They're not normally in their rookie season.
They're to do their job, aren't they? Really.
Exactly. In the rookie season, you don't see them breaking records like you do Cam Newton and other players, coming in and making a huge impact. So I think he'll go about his business quietly. We've seen him be successful in the NCAA. For the Iowa Blackhawks, and so I think he's gonna be. I think he'll be a success story in the St. Louis Rams, and I think everybody felt that the time was right for Josh Brown to leave, and I think it's going to be an interesting one. But if you want an easy bar bet, take Zuerlein to lead the Rams in scoring next year, and drink for free on me. So yeah, definitely.
So, looking at their schedule now for the season, which has already obviously been decided, their first 4 games in September are Detroit, Washington, Chicago and Seattle. And obviously Seattle, they've got a bit of a rivalry going on with them, and some other bits and bobs going on there. But what do you think about those early fixtures?
Sorry, could you just repeat them for me, please?
Detroit Lions, Washington Redskins, Chicago Bears and Seattle Seahawks.
Well, obviously, we'll start with the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, not the greatest of seasons for them last year. We saw them the year before beat the the Saints in a very interesting playoff encounter, which everybody had them written off, only to be beaten by the Chicago Bears in the NFC Championship game. But the Seattle, they've had a lot of success in the past. But I don't think this year is going to be their year. I don't think they're going to be able to replicate that. But they'll try. They have a good head coach, and I think they've got a big fan base, nice stadium. I mean, Seattle, they're always going to be looking forward. They're always going to be a contender every year. But I don't think this year is going to be their year. But I think looking forward, they're going to be a good team in years to come.
Yeah, and they played them twice because obviously they're both in the NFC West, so they both play each other twice, and that's interesting. And by the way, we're just going to head to a quick commercial break, and we're going to be back in 1 minute. One sec. And we're back from our commercial break for part 2 of our St. Louis Rams pre-season predictions, and we are now just continuing with the schedule. So, Charles, what do you think about their matches? Detroit Lions. What do you think about that?
That's going to be a hard game to start off with. Obviously, we saw the Lions make a good playoff run last year, only to be beaten by the Green Bay Packers. But, they're a good side, and Matthew Stafford, I think Sam Bradford's going to try and replicate what Matthew Stafford's come in and done there. Obviously he's quite young as well, but maybe the Lions are a bit more advanced in that stage. Obviously they had Calvin Johnson Jr. as their go-to guy, whereas maybe Brian Quick to come in, but it's his rookie season, we can't expect that of him yet. So I think maybe Sam Bradford will struggle a little bit more, or take him more time than say for Matthew Stafford. But I think the Rams, they might be able to get something out of that game, and I think anything they get out of that game is a positive, and they can look to their other games to get most of their points. But I think you never know. We've seen stranger things happen, so I'd go for a Lions win in that one. But we'll see. But now I'd like to, Philip, I think it's the time, and we will now make our predictions for each. We will make our predictions for every game, every 16 games of the Rams regular season, and 17 games of the. 17 weeks, 16 games by week, and just tap myself on the head there. But we will make a prediction for every one of the Rams games. So firstly, on September the 9th, they take on the Detroit Lions. I'm going for Lions win on that one. What about you?
Again, a win for me, and for the Lions, they just look slightly better, don't they? Just might outweigh them a little bit, especially first game of the season.
Right, I hate to hurry you up, but we can't. Right, okay. Redskins. I'm going for a Rams win, because my reasoning behind this is I don't think RG3 would have quite settled in. Only second game. Don't really see any major targets on the wide receiving team there in Washington. So I'm going for a Rams win. I think they're really going to push on from this stage onwards. Okay, right. Now let's go to the Chicago. Oh, sorry, you need to have your say.
I do.
That's the Redskins.
And for that, it's so close, but I agree with you. I would go with the the St. Louis Rams win. As I agree with you, I just don't think RG3 will have quite settled in yet. I don't think that he'll have built up quite enough chemistry with his receivers, at that stage. So moving on to the Bears, I'm sorry, St. Louis, but I'm going to have to go for a narrow Bears victory on that one. They're a good side, and again, the Rams are still going to just be slowly settling in. But I reckon, it won't be far off them getting fully settled in, but I don't think they'll be able to beat the Bears.
Right, yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. Obviously, I think Brian Urlacher and the Bears defense are going to have something to say to Sam Bradford and Brian Quick. I don't think that relationship will quite have developed yet, but I'm all up for the Rams going out there and proving me wrong. I think it's not impossible, but I just don't see it. Sorry. Moving on to the Seahawks, I'm going to go with the Rams victory on this, so I'm saying they're going to be 2-2 at this stage of the season. I don't think the Seahawks quite have the firepower or the franchise quarterback. Obviously they've got Marshawn Lynch, but one running back can't do it all. Obviously Sam Bradford, the Rams defense not looking too bad. They've boosted up their secondary. Obviously with Brookers, they've bolstered their defensive line, and I'm looking for a Rams win on this one. What about you, Philip?
Well, I would agree agree with that. Just about. I think they'll sneak through with a quick victory and just bring it back to 2 apiece. In my opinion, that won't be bad. They'll have equals last season at that stage if they do that. But we'll just have to see. It's hard to predict at this part of the season, but I think I agree with you. Anyway, moving on, they're playing their sort of slight rivals there, Arizona Cardinals, and that'll be an interesting game, and it's going to be close, but I reckon St. Louis will just nip it, but I think it'll be really close, that game.
You know what? I'm going to come out and disagree with you here. I think it's going to be Cardinals' victory. The Cardinals are not the greatest of teams, but, I think, it's always quite, it's hard going to Arizona, and, I think they might struggle. Oh, sorry, home to Arizona. So maybe I'll change my opinion for that one, and I actually think there'll be a Rams win. Obviously, they're at home, and, I think... Obviously, in Larry Fitzgerald, Arizona have that go-to guy, which the Rams hopefully will have in Brian Quick, but obviously we can't be sure, so haven't developed yet. They have, what they might lack in quarterback prowess, I think they more than make up for with Larry Fitzgerald, and I just think, this guy, he can beat teams on his own, I think, personally, I think he's probably the best wide receiver, kind of overall in the NFL. I think he's got everything. I think he can beat defenders, he's got pace, he's agile, he's strong, and so, yeah, I think Larry Fitzgerald, that's going to be a big test for Janoris Jenkins, and what's the other one called? And the other, we'll go with the other quarterback. I know it's a stupid name, but yeah, not quarterback, cornerback. So yeah, I think he's definitely going to test out the Rams secondary, and so I'm going for an Arizona. I'll go with an Arizona win. I'm sorry, I don't see past Larry Fitzgerald.
Rain Johnson, do you recall that? Rain Johnson. And next up, we have the St. Louis Rams against Miami Dolphins.
Miami Dolphins number 1. You know what? I don't think they've heard it yet, have they? I think, shall we do it now? Come on, Philip. Right, I don't know, listeners, obviously you won't know this, but we are a great fan of the Miami Dolphins fight song. And no, we're not talking about fins to the right, fins to the left, with the only team in town. No, not that one. The good one. My first experience of the National Football League in the US was at Miami Dolphins, and I remember the song, and it's become kind of an NFL and Cumpets legend. So here it is, the Miami Dolphins fight song. Green has the Dolphins, the greatest football team. They run the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen.
They're in the air, they're on the ground, they're always in control.
So when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl, cause we're the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number 1. Yes, we're the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number 1. Yeah. Yeah, moving on. Moving swiftly on.
I'm going for St. Louis wipeout. Well, not really a wipeout, but I reckon St. Louis will win that quite convincingly, actually.
Once again, Jack, I'm going to...
Sorry, what was my name there? Did you get my name mixed up?
Oh no, I was just reading a column by Jack Winterburn saying that the St. Louis Rams will blitz through the Miami Dolphins, but I'm going to counter that by saying I'm going for a Dolphins victory. Obviously, they've got Ryan Tannehill in the quarterback position. Obviously, if he doesn't work out, they've got the experience of David Garrard, formerly of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, they have now signed the legend, the American Emil Heskey, that is Chad Ochocinco, and obviously they've Cameron Wake, the experience of Jason Taylor. They've got other receivers in the shape of Devon Bess, Brandon Marshall, and I just can't see. I just can't see the Rams getting a result here. I think this will be another tough test to the shrewdness of the Rams secondary. I won't try and pronounce their names. But yeah, so I'm going for a Dolphins win here, and so now we'll move on to the Green Bay Packers. And do we even need to?
By the way, we're running a bit low on time, so what we're going to do now for each game, we're just going to say W, L, or D, depending on
W, L, and D. Okay.
It's going to be. So, Charles,
all right, we'll cut the crap and we'll get to it, okay? You guys, you're busy people. You've got stuff to do. You don't want to listen to us rabbit on. Well, you probably do because you're listening, but we're not going to give it to you. We're just going to WLD. So Green Bay Packers, I'm not even going to... I don't see why we need to say it, but I'm going for a W for the Green Bay Packers.
Agreed. GBW. And then New England... That's the game we're going to. That is the game we're going to.
I think we will have our
New England win, isn't it?
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, we would love a Rams victory. We'll be there. We will be supporting the Rams, and let's hope the Rams get a victory. And that's the last one I'll talk about, seeing as we're going to be there. Moving on. So yeah.
San Fran. That's going to be a close game, but I reckon if the Rams are on form, they can nip it. So I'm going to go Rams W.
I'm going to completely disagree. I think that's a ludicrous decision. San Francisco 49ers all the way. New York Jets. Yeah. Oh come on, they've got Tim Tebow. Any team.
Tim Tebow, you don't know what he's going to be like.
Any team with Tebow gets my vote. I'm going with the New York Jets.
I would agree. W for the Jets on that one. But I'm going to be a bit biased because I'm a Rams fan. So that probably was the wrong decision about the 49ers, but there you go. And for the, St. Louis meeting Arizona for the second time, I am going to say, he said the Cardinals, so I'm going to go Cardinals W.
Yep, same. San Francisco 49ers, I'm going with the San Francisco win once again. Alex Smith, San Francisco defense are going to bring it to the St. Louis Rams. I'm going with the San Francisco win there.
And then moving on to the Buffalo Bills, you didn't give your opinion on the Arizona Cardinals, by the way. You went straight there. 49ers. But Buffalo Bills, I'm going to go Rams W for that one.
Buffalo Bills, yeah, same. Sorry, Kevin, but, Kevin Taylor, that is, for all you Americans. Obviously, he's the, I'll tell you anyway. He is the Sky Sports, which is the British broadcaster of NFL presenter, and he's a big Buffalo Bills fan. I think he's originally a basketball coach, but yeah, anyway, so I'm going for a Rams victory. Obviously, playing the Vikings, Adrian Peterson, will he bring it? Will he not? Will he bring his A game? I'm going with a Vikings win there. What about you?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I've seen a lot of Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the past years. I think I've seen them 4 times. They've been to Wembley twice, seen them a couple of times in Tampa Bay. Josh Freeman. No, I'm going with the St. Louis Rams. Sorry, Tampa. I'll apologise.
Yeah, same Rams win. And then going to Seattle.
I'm going for a Rams victory.
There, but I reckon they should put one out the bag, so I'm going for St. Louis.
So what would you... I think that means that I'm going for their overall record. You work it out as well, so I'm going for the overall record to be...
I'm not sure at the moment, actually. I didn't keep track. I'm an idiot. I would say it's probably 7 to 9 or 8 to 8, I reckon.
Yeah, I'm 6 to 10. I'm sorry, Jack.
That's still not awful. That's not awful. It's not good, but it's not awful.
I'm just reading this guy's column, Jack Winterburn. I'm sorry, Jack, but it's just not working out for you. So yeah.
No, it's not working out for Jack Winterburn, is it?
No.
But
right,
anyway,
so that concludes.
We've talked about it, and that's what we think about the St. Louis Rams. Have they made the right decisions? Have they made the wrong decisions? Only time will tell on that one. Will Brian Crick and Michael Brockers change the face of the team? Probably not, but we'll have to see. So, anyway, me, Phillip, and him, Charles, it's goodbye from me.
And don't forget, you can contact us on nfl@crumpets@gmail.com, all lowercase, no spaces, and we will try, if you do email us, which I suspect nobody will, but I'll try anyway. If you do email us, then we will endeavour to read out your emails on future teams. So, say you're a Pats fan, you can email us what you think about the Patriots, and we will try to read your comments out when we get to the Patriots, which I presume is in a couple of weeks' time. So, so that's it from us, and I believe next we will be talking about I believe next we will be talking about who is the third worst team.
Who is that?
Right, we'll find out for you guys. We're not going to disappoint.
We'll find out.
I'll just do that quickly now. Let's work it out. Well, whoever they are, we will be talking about them. So that is it from us. So
so it's bye from me and bye from Charles. And we're sorry, there might be a few mistakes in this. We are new to podcasting, so don't flame us.
Right. See ya. Bye.